spell Vamp build gives 51% damage reduction for physical and magical attacks. The reference build gives 64% damage reduction for physical attacks and 59% damage reduction for magical attacks. So with the spell Vamp build you take 36% more damage from physical attack and 20% more damage from magical attacks. In return, you get 26% more HP, keeping in mind the assumptions we made. Now, how can we determine which one is better? Well, we can just calculate how much damage you can take before you die. We will do this for physical damage and for magic damage for each of the builds and then compare. For physical damage first then. With the spell Vamp build you will be dead after 8,437 physical damage. With the reference build you will be dead after 9,108 physical damage. And for magical damage, with the spell Vamp build you will be dead after 8,437 magical damage. For the reference build you will be dead after 7,998 magical damage. In conclusion, for physical damage the reference build can take 671 additional damage, but for magical damage the spell Vamp build can take 439 extra damage. Of course, we have to keep in mind that it is largely due to the fight being perfect, all champions in range, no skills being used. Just to see what happens, we change the reference build to Heart of Gold, 975 gold, gives us 27 armor, 200 HP. Mercury Strats, 1200 gold, give us 25 MR. Banshee's Veil, 2715 gold, gives us 50 MR and 375 HP. Warmark's Armor, 3000 gold, gives us 1370 HP. Force of Nature, 2710 gold, gives us 76 MR. This build gives us 27 armor, 151 MR and 1945 HP for the price of 10,500 gold, so 475 more gold than the spell Vamp build. Amumu's total HP then becomes 1984 for natural HP, plus 1945 from items is 3929. Our physical damage reduction is 77.4 from natural armor, plus 27 from items is 104.4 armor, which gives us 51% physical damage reduction. Magical damage reduction then, we have 30 natural MR, plus 151 from items, it's 181 MR, which gives us 64% magical damage reduction. With this build you die after 8,018 physical damage or 10,914 magic damage. This build can therefore take 2,477 more magical damage, but the spell Vamp build can take 419 more physical damage. This is still not convincing enough for me to make a ruling whether or not the spell Vamp build is a valid one. So let's loosen up the assumptions. Let's assume we don't hit 5 champions, but instead only hit 2. And we're going to choose Teemo and Lee Sin, because they are the weakest 2. The Bandage Toss still does 298 damage to Teemo, like we calculated earlier. Then we have a basic attack on Teemo, so his magic resist again drops by 35. Then for Tantrum, we now do 255 damage to only 2 champions. With the magic reduction, damage reduction, it becomes 204 life from Teemo and 140 life from Lee Sin. Total damage is 344 life per 3 to 4 seconds. Again, we assume the cooldown of Tantrum is 3 to 4 seconds. Then the Curse of the Sad Mummy, which deals 510 damage. For Teemo, this would mean 408 damage, and for Lee Sin this would mean 281 damage, for a total of 689. Despair then does 74 damage per second to Teemo and 59 damage per second to Lee Sin, for a total of 133 life. Tantrum can be used twice, for a total of 688 life. Despair damages enemies 5 times, for a total of 665 life. The total damage then becomes 298 plus 688 plus 689 plus 665 is 2340 life. The spell vamp will be 20% of that, is 468 life. Amumu's total HP then becomes 1984 natural HP, 1205 from items, 468 from spell vamp, for a total of 3657 life. After hitting 2 champions, you will be dead after 7463 physical damage or 7463 magical damage. Compared to the first reference build, this is 1645 less physical damage and 535 less magical damage. Compared to the second reference build, this is 555 less physical damage and 3451 less magical damage. And of course, tank items are very situational, so what's good one game can be bad the next. So we have to keep in mind that we can choose whichever items we want based on the type of damage that is most important in that game. So we see that the build largely depends on your ability to hit all champions with all your spells. Realistically speaking, this is impossible. Of course, if you can fight with minions being hit by your spells, you can have a chance of making this build work better than the conventional ones, but in my opinion, the fact that you are so much weaker when there are no minions around makes the build impractical and therefore invalid. You may of course have a different opinion about this conclusion. If you do, please leave a comment and please motivate why you disagree. You may of course have a different opinion about this conclusion. If you do, please leave a comment and please motivate why you disagree. Just for fun, let's create a last scenario where you're running away from enemy champions. It happens quite often, so it would be nice to know whether you can actually escape or not. We assume that you are not able to use any of your spells since you are running away, so no magic damage and no spell vamp. Your total HP will be 1984 natural HP and 1205 from items, for a total of 3189. This means that you will be dead after 6508 physical damage or 6508 magical damage. That's 2600 physical damage and 1490 magical damage less than the first reference build, and 1510 physical and 406 magical damage less than the second reference build. So the first reference build can take 40% more physical damage and 23% more magical damage, and the second reference build can take 23% more physical damage and 67% more magical damage. So while running away from opponents, you will wish you hadn't built Spell Vamp, but got some armor instead. That's it for now. I hope you learned something from this video, and I will see you later. GG.